Week 3 of the 2020 college football season is now over, and we are headed into week number 4 beginning this week. And of course, we saw last week the Big Ten announced that they'll be playing football in about a month from now. They're going to be starting up their season on the weekend of October 24th. So we're going to be seeing Big Ten football this fall, which is great news. We're actually going to be re-entering the Big Ten teams into our rankings beginning this week. And I consider maybe doing it in just a couple of weeks, but considering I believe that the AP poll will be doing it this week, I just decided to as well. So Big Ten teams will be in these rankings here today, but once again, as always, these will be only with competing teams as of now. So the Pac-12 will not be included in this. But anyway, with that being said, let's look at your rankings for week number 4. Number 1 team is going to be Clemson, and this one was pretty obvious for me. Obviously, they shut out the Citadel last week, 49-0, and they are 2-0 going into this next week. Clemson's been playing pretty well so far. Really, they haven't had a close game hardly at all so far, and that's honestly as expected because they really haven't played anyone good at all. But your number 2 team is going to be Ohio State. Ohio State enters back into the rankings this week after being out of it for a couple of weeks because the Big Ten canceling their games this fall. So Ohio State's going to come in at number 2, and they're going to come in just ahead of Alabama, which Alabama, of course, they'll be starting up playing football over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it's going to be fun to see how Alabama does this season. Same thing with Oklahoma. Oklahoma is 1-0, and each of these teams from 3 to 7 are actually moving down 1. And once again, the main reason for that obviously is because Ohio State is entering in at number 2. Oklahoma, once again, though, is number 4. They had a bye this week. LSU is going to be starting up. Once again, the SEC actually starts up playing football this weekend. So we're going to be seeing a lot of SEC teams going back into action. LSU comes in at number 5. Florida's at number 6. Then Georgia's at number 7, which, of course, you may wonder why Georgia is coming in kind of low on this list. And the main reason for that is because, 1, Jamie Newman is opted out of the season, so you will not be having your starting quarterback that you expected to have for the entire offseason. And 2, in general, I mean, yeah, the quarterback situation is going to be really interesting to see what happens there. Obviously, JT Daniels is likely favored to start, but still, that's pretty up in the air right now. We'll probably find out sometime this week, I'd assume before their first game on Saturday. Florida's at number 6, though. I actually do think that Florida's going to be a better team than Georgia this season. I'm actually favoring Florida over Georgia to win the SEC East, so that's the reason why Florida is on top of Georgia there. But as far as LSU and Florida go, I think they're both pretty equally skilled. I'd say both of those teams should do just as well as each other this season. So that's what your 1 through 7 looks like. Moving on, we got number 8, which is going to be Penn State. Penn State enters back in the rankings at number 8, and then Wisconsin enters in at 9. So we've got 2 Big Ten teams there in the top 10. So we've actually got 3 total in the top 10, including Ohio State, Penn State, and Wisconsin. And those 2 teams go in front of Texas A&M, which Texas A&M will be our final team in our top 10. They moved down 3 going into this week, once again, with 3 Big Ten teams going over them. That's the reason why they went down. And that's also a reason why a lot of these teams are going down this week, is because just once again, with the Big Ten teams entering. Number 11 is going to be Texas. They did not play this week. They had a bye week, but they are 1-0 going into week number 4. We also saw Auburn, of course. Auburn's going to be playing this weekend. They moved down 4 going into week 4. And then we had Notre Dame, of course. They shut out South Florida 52-0 this past week. They were 2-0 and looking pretty good going into week number 4 as well, which Notre Dame, of course, they had a bit of a closer call against Duke in week number 3, or in week number 2. So that's kind of what was setting them apart from all the other SEC teams for me. So I do have them a bit lower than the AP poll does or any of the other polls. But once again, Notre Dame, I mean, they've got a lot of chances to be able to prove themselves this season, especially for when they play Clemson. We also got North Carolina. They did not play this week, but they're moving down 4 as they're 1-0 heading into week number 4. North Carolina is easily, I'd say, the second best team in the ACC right now, just behind Clemson. I mean, yeah, North Carolina, they're looking very good this season. Sam Howell at quarterback. He is definitely a quarterback that is extremely underrated. Watch out for him. And, yeah, once again, it's going to be really fun to see where North Carolina ends up later on this season. Moving on to your 15 through 21. At 15, we've got UCF, and I highly consider moving them up into the top 13 or top 12. I mean, they played very, very well against Georgia Tech last week, 49-21. They got the win there, in which Georgia Tech played pretty well in week number 2. So that was the reason why I maybe considered putting them higher. But they're going to stay equal this week. They're going to stay at 15, which is pretty good. They're currently sitting at 1-0 heading into week 4. Tennessee is going to drop in at 16. They've got a bye week, of course, in week number 4, or in week 3, and they're coming into week number 4 at number 16, and they're going to be starting up their first game here this Saturday as well. So it's going to be fun to see how Tennessee does. I mean, yeah, once again, as you've heard from what I've said this offseason, I mean, Tennessee is easily I'd say one of the more underrated teams in the SEC. I don't think that they'll win the SEC East by means. I mean, they're definitely not going to beat out Georgia or Florida, but I do expect Tennessee to finish off third in that division. They're looking pretty good, especially on the offensive side going into next season. 17, we've got Miami. Of course, they beat off Louisville 37 to 34 last week, so they had a pretty good game. And they are also 2-1 or 2-0 going into this week. Memphis is number 18. Of course, they had a bye week this week. They'll be playing next week. They are 1-0. Cincinnati's number 19, and they beat off Austin Peay this past week, 55 to 20. Pretty easy win there. However, they are moving down, and the main reason for that, once again, is because of all the teams entering in front of them, but also in general. I mean, allowing Austin Peay to score 20 points on them was not very impressive, but they still scored 55, so it was all around a good win. Number 20 and 21 will be two more Big Ten teams. Minnesota comes in at 20, and Michigan comes in at 21. So we've got two more Big Ten teams there. I think in general, Minnesota will be a better team than Michigan, and it would not surprise me a single bit if Minnesota did make it to the Big Ten championship this upcoming season. I mean, they've got the talent there. Tanner Morgan at quarterback. Yeah, they're looking really good. Watch out for Minnesota this year. And Michigan, I don't know. Michigan, I'm more uncertain about. I mean, they've got a lot of talent still, but I mean, they are losing a lot of players as well after last season. So it's going to be kind of weird to see how they do this season, but I think Michigan will be just fine. They're coming in at 21 for week number 4. Coming into your 22 through 25, we've got Oklahoma State, who had a huge drop after week 3. They ended up beating Tulsa, but they almost lost to them. I mean, it was a really close game for the majority of it. We actually saw Tulsa in front of Oklahoma State for a good 15 to 20 minutes in that game. So, but nonetheless, they dropped down 9 going into this week. They were 16-7. Or they won that game 16-7, but still, I mean, that's way too close of a call to play Tulsa. They're 1-0 heading into week number 4. Virginia Tech also had a bye. They have not played a game yet, but they did move down 7 this week. Pittsburgh enters the rankings at 24, and they're the one team that is not a Big Ten team entering the rankings this week. They beat off Syracuse 21-10 in week number 3. They're 1-0 as well. And BYU, of course, they stay equal at 25. They did not play this week, but they had a huge blowout win against Navy in week 1. So it's gonna be interesting to see how BYU does this season. I believe they do play in week 4 if I'm correct. I do know that they were supposed to play Army this week, but of course that got postponed due to COVID concerns. But they are 1-0, so they're looking pretty good right now. First 5 out, we've got 26 being Iowa. We got Baylor 27, Louisville, Louisiana, then Kentucky to follow. Of course, Louisiana looked pretty good after week 2, but in week 3, I mean, they almost lost to Georgia State. The game went into overtime, so that's why they got bumped out. And we actually had 6 teams that dropped out of the rankings after this week, including Baylor, Louisiana, Louisville, Appalachian State, Virginia, and then Kentucky. Of course, Appalachian State got upset this week, so I had to drop them out. But nonetheless, yeah, that wraps up our college football rankings for week number 4. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you disagree with anything here, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that once again. I'll try to get back to as many of your guys' comments as I possibly can. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you later.